Hello and welcome to today's video on electronic structure. This is the first kind of topic that's different from GCSE, so I'm going to break it down into a few different videos so we can all get to grips with this kind of concept. So the first thing that you need to know is that shells further from the nucleus have a greater energy level. Yep, that's kind of just needs to be ingrained in your memory. It's just a little fact that you need to know. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult. So there are 4 subshells. In GCSE we were taught that it was the kind of basics, that there were shells, but in AS chemistry you need to break it down further into subshells. So the shells contain different types of subshells. These subshells have different numbers of orbitals which can hold up to 2 electrons. So here we go. The number of orbitals in the S subshell is 1, and 1 orbital times 2 electrons means it can hold up to a maximum of 2 electrons. This concept is obviously the same for P, D and F. You need to memorize the order in which they are. So P has 3 orbitals, and 3 orbitals times 2 electrons gives it a maximum of 6 electrons. D has 5 orbitals, 5 times 2 electrons gives you a maximum of 10, and I bet you can't guess, F has 7 orbitals, 7 times 2 equals 14. So just kind of go over that concept, let it sink in for a little bit if you don't understand. So we know from GCSE that there are shells, and now we know from AS that there are subshells, and we already knew about electrons. So the first shell has 1 subshell, and we call this 1s. Now we know from this little part here that the S subshell has 1 orbital. 1 orbital times 2 electrons gives it a maximum of 2 electrons. So in the first shell, the first subshell, 1s, there are 2 electrons. Now it gets a little bit harder from there. So the second shell has 2 subshells, 2s, so we know that means there are 2 electrons, and 2p, we know that means 6 electrons, so 2 plus 6, and that'll give you a maximum of 8 electrons in the second shell. The third shell can hold up to 3 subshells, or you could say it's divided into 3 subshells. That's really hard to say quite quickly. So 3s, that would be 2, 3p, that would be 6, 3d, that would be 10, and so you've got a maximum of 18. And the fourth one, so again 4s 2, 4p 6, 4d 10, and 4f 14, and that gives you a maximum of 32 electrons. So that's the first little part of electronic structure, and in the next video we'll be going on to how to work out the electronic configuration. So yeah, I hope to see you in the next video.